West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. The Democrats have officially fled the state of Texas. Congratulations, Republicans. You figured out a way to get them to leave. The governor, though, has issued arrest warrants, telling them they have gone AWOL, and they could be arrested if they don't return quickly. When the 4 p.m. Central Time deadline had come and gone, Texas Speaker of the House Dustin Burrows has announced yesterday that he would sign arrest warrants against any absent Democrat lawmakers if authorized by a vote of the chamber. Shortly thereafter, the House did approve the warrants, and Governor Greg Abbott then swiftly called on the Texas Department of Public Safety to arrest the delinquent Texas House Democrats. Democrat lawmakers ultimately did not return to Texas in time to approve a quorum amid a fight to halt GOP efforts to redraw the state's congressional maps. Instead, different states have welcomed them, like Illinois and New York. The Illinois State Democrat Party put out a press release shortly before the quorum in Texas was requested, indicating that, quote, in a bold and unified response, Texas House Democrats have denied a quorum. So not showing up to work is bold now. Well, several state Democrats appeared at an event in Illinois on Monday, a state that critics argue is heavily gerrymandered itself. Other events aimed at fighting against Texas redistricting efforts were also held in Albany, Boston, and Chicago. Let me begin with commending the members who did show up. Texas Speaker of the House Dustin Burrows said after the quorum was rejected. Meanwhile, Burrows slammed the absent Democrats and said he would not hesitate to sign the civil arrest warrants if it was determined that lawmakers are in violation of the law. So, Texas wants to implement new congressional maps. These congressional maps would add roughly, according to analysts, about 5 new House Republican districts to the House of Representatives. So it favors Republicans. This is what the Democrats are arguing. Therefore, they're not going to show up because in Texas, you have to have a two-thirds of the lawmakers show up for it to become a quorum in order to hold the vote.
Now, I do want to put a point here just for a second. Just for a second, Jeff.
Please.
I just want to remind people, remember, here in Colorado, we had a lawsuit from the Colorado GOP because there was an argument about how much or who inside the Colorado GOP of voting members had to be present to reach a quorum. So if you remember hearing that word, it was just a few months ago. Okay, I'm sorry. Continue, my friend.
Correct. This happens all the time, and it becomes a tactic, typically for those that are in the minority, to stall or hold back. So, Bill, I'm a little torn on this. Is fleeing the state in an effort to not hold a vote childish, immature? 100%. Yes. Do I wish Colorado Republicans could figure out a way to do this? 100%. Especially to stop the Democrats in this state. Unfortunately, you just need a small minority, a majority, a 51%.
I was looking forward to this because the idea of them running away from the state in order to prevent a quorum is a tactic that is near and dear to my heart when I was a kid, because it was a tried and true method employed by none other than King Arthur. Who remembers this from Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Run away! Run away! Run away!
Yes, run away. They have implemented the Monty Python tactic, run away. I appreciate that. Run
And
away!
I
Run
think
away!
I think
love
you
that.
can hold both at the same time. That this is absolutely childish. That this is unbecoming
Yes.
of a statesman. That
Yeah.
this is, you battle these things, and if you don't have the votes, you don't have the votes. Welcome to a republic. At the same time, I wish Republicans in Colorado could figure out ways to throw every possible wrench into the system in an effort to disrupt the progressive takeover of the state. And if there was some way that we could flee the state in an effort to stop, for instance, gun restriction bills or bills that would bring taxpayer funding to the murdering of innocent children, I think Republicans should do it. It's a little bit harder in this state, but I think you can hold both of those at the same time. So we'll get into this hour and would love to hear from you. Plus, is it warranted? Is the Democrats' concern about gerrymandering warranted when they flee to states that are wildly gerrymandered?
Yeah, and who's this Jerry and why is he meandering so many things? That's what I want to know.
Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line at 720-819-5115. Now is time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, and it is so beautiful outside. 66 degrees with some sun and some clouds and great colors in the sky. Expecting a high of 98 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, if we are to ever see Brennan Clapper, Comey, and all the deep state communist crooks in cuffs, this has to happen. John Solomon, Just the News.
This is a major development. We told you last week that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, had given permission for a strike force to begin. That's a very specific tool the Justice Department uses on major conspiracies. And we told you then we would know it was getting serious when the grand jury jumped into action. We now know that a grand jury will be impaneled. Most likely, my sources are telling me, it could be in Florida, where the raid of President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home happened. So that is...
Let's go. Let's do it. Now, here's how Monica Alba downplayed it on propaganda TV NBC News.
A couple of weeks ago, Hallie, when really the headlines were dominated by the Jeffrey Epstein controversy, and then the president was sort of trying to change the topic very obviously and in many different venues, was trying to bring up these unsubstantiated claims about the role he argues former President Obama had in the 2016 election and trying to suppress some information that he says would have been damaging if it had come to light. And so then you have the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, come to the White House briefing room, come to the podium and try to share some of this alleged new evidence. Well, now...
Try to share some of this alleged new evidence. It's unsubstantiated. All right, the cartoon character on Messy NBC thinks the world's coming to an end. TDS.
Because we do now live in a country that has an authoritarian leader in charge. We have a consolidating dictatorship in our country. And it sounds melodramatic to say it, I know. But just go with that for a minute, right? Think in melodramatic terms. Think in cinematic terms. Imagine the cartoon-level caricature of what you think a dictatorship looks like. I mean, it's secret police, right? A massive, anonymous, unbadged, literally masked, totally unaccountable internal police force.
She's showing ice. Wow. So entertaining. 7 people taken to the hospital after a crash last night in Aurora. 2 vehicles involved at the intersection of Mississippi and Sable. Aurora Fire Rescue had to extricate at least 1 person from a vehicle involved in the crash, at least 3 who were hospitalized had serious injuries. Investigation underway. Aurora police say at least 4 people are recovering from injuries after a commuter rail train and a semi crashed near the intersection of Smith Road and Sable on Monday. The train operator has injuries from broken glass, and 3 passengers suffered minor injuries. 57 passengers were on the train at the time. Israel is reportedly preparing to take full control of the Gaza Strip. And a source in Prime Minister Netanyahu's office says the decision has been made the Palestinian militant group, or terrorists, that is, Hamas, will not release the remaining hostages taken in 2023 unless the area comes under full Israeli occupation. Texas Governor Abbott authorizing civil arrest warrants for lawmakers, i.e. knuckleheads, who left the state in a bid to stop redistricting. More than 50 Democrats fled to Illinois, New York, and Massachusetts, where they celebrate communism, to prevent Republicans from advancing redistricting maps aimed at adding up to 5 GOP seats ahead of the 2026 midterms. Russia says it is no longer subject to intermediate range nuclear forces, the treaty it signed with the U.S. in 1987. Russia's announcement comes as DJT said he was positioning 2 nuclear submarines near Russia and just ahead of U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff's planned visit to the country. All right, the Jays over the Rockies. Oh, my goodness, 15-1 on Monday. First pitch tonight at Coors Field, 6:40. Broncos training camp continues, and Jeff and Bill continue at 65 in Parker, 64 in Arvada, 66 in Denver. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast, it's going to be mostly sunny and hot today, and that'll set the trend for basically the rest of the work week. This afternoon, we're going to see highs in the middle and upper 90s with clear skies tonight and lows in the mid-60s. Upper 90s for Wednesday and Thursday, might even hit 100 in spots, keeping it sunny and dry with lows upper 60s, trending cooler in the 80s this weekend. Weather brought to you by L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, dependable service, call 720-851-1691 or visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're discussing the Texas Democrats fleeing the state in an effort to stop the passing of a newly remapped congressional kind of proportionment. So the maps that determine who our members of Congress are can be drawn in a number of different ways. In Texas, though, really there's no restrictions other than a federal restriction that says that the maps have to be close to population numbers. So you can't have one map that represents lots of people and then a tiny little congressional district that represents very little people. They have to be drawn in equal proportions throughout the state so that the population's evenly divided. If you remember, I'm going to take you all the way back to the Great Compromise, right, at the foundation of this country, how are we going to determine the makeup of the legislature? Do we do it by population? Do we do it by the state? Because you had some smaller states like Rhode Island going, well, we're not going to join this effort to build a country if we don't have power, and you hand it all to New York and Virginia. And so the compromise to empower little states was the Senate, and the compromise to empower bigger states with larger populations was the House of Representatives. Now, when you draw those congressional maps, the only federal law is that they have to be kind of equal in population. Not so in Colorado. If you remember, Amendment Y in 2018 said it wasn't going to be the legislature that determines our congressional maps. No, it's going to be a 12-member independent congressional redistricting commission of citizens that would draw Colorado's congressional maps. The commission must be bipartisan. 4 members from each of the 2 largest parties, plus 4 unaffiliated. Maps require the approval of 8 out of the 12 members, including at least 2 unaffiliated commissioners. So my question to you, Bill, is in light of the fact that there's no requirement in law in Texas that, they put together a commission that has to be bipartisan or anything like that. It's simply the kind of general voting rights compliance that one person, one vote, and that the maps have to be generally the same size and population. Is it right for the Democrats to flee the state of Texas at this point? Are they just obstructionists? This is the right of the majority. Republicans control the state. They get to draw the map the way they want to. There's nothing illegal being done here. You may not like the process, but it's the legal process. If you wanted something like we have in Colorado with a bipartisan commission, well, you can create that, but they haven't. So should the Democrats return? Create the quorum, allow the votes to proceed. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I dislike the idea of letting the legislature draw the boundaries. I think that is functionally stupid to let the legislature draw their own boundaries. Because we all can admit there's going to be motivation to make sure they are unequal and biased.
Of course.
Because they
Republican
want
or Democrat.
Yeah, and that's why I think at the core it's stupid. Because I think it's ridiculous. And here's the idea. If we think it's a great idea to let the lawmakers draw the lines, then let the party out of power do it. And if it's not a good idea then it's not a good idea for the people in power. I understand the idea, to the victor go the spoils. But if it is a good idea to let the lawmakers independently draw the lines, let the party out of power do it. Because they're still there. So that's, I just have a problem with this,
though.
I just have a problem with the gerrymanders. The what?
A rebuttal to this.
Yeah.
And I've heard this from Democrats.
Yeah.
Jaron Polis beat Heidi Godal by nearly 20 points.
Yeah.
Okay, it was about 19 points. And yet, Colorado has both 4 Republican members of Congress and 4 Democrat members of Congress. How does that at all reflect the population when you have exactly equal representation in Congress in a state that votes statewide wildly in one direction? Is that fair for the voters of Colorado? What would be your response?
I'm not certain that I understand the question. Why wouldn't it be fair? What is unfair about necessarily the representation that we have in Colorado?
Well, is it clearly a blue state? We're deeply blue.
Are we?
And yet we're balanced when it comes to members of Congress representation?
Well, wouldn't that necessarily reflect the wishes of more rural voters who are more conservative? I mean, wouldn't you expect, if you draw these boundary lines in a more, and again, I am not, this is awful. I'm not saying that this is an equitable way for Colorado to draw their boundary lines. However, you would assume in a system in which you draw the boundaries more equitably, you would have more Democrat Party representation in large urban areas and more GOP Republican conservative representation in more of the rural areas. That's kind of how we break down demographically right now. So when we have places that have large rural areas, you end up with Hurd and Crank and Boebert and the like. And then when you get into more urban-centric areas, you end up with Pedersen, Negus, and people like that. But again, we do have a chance statewide to reflect it, and that's a statewide vote. And based on numbers so far, the Democrats. But that's not necessarily unusual, because in the state of New York, most of the people live in the city. Same thing happens inside of California. The population centers are where most of the people are. So when you get down to just adding pure numbers statewide, yeah, it will tilt one way or the other. I just think it's a bad idea to let the people that are in charge of the legislature at that point in order to make the rules. And here's an example. While, again, I'm very good at inaccurate analogies, and this is yet another one. We wouldn't sit there and say, well, last time that the Broncos played the Raiders won, so now the Raiders get to decide what rules we play under in the next game. You wouldn't do that. That's the idea, is letting the person that's in charge then decide what the rules are for the next game. I just think it's stupid. I think that every state should have some sort of a process or some sort of a panel that blends it, between both parties. Because I don't, again, what Texas is doing, they're in power. I think it's dumb because didn't they just 3 years ago pass districts anew? I don't understand what has been this dramatic change that all of a sudden now we need more districts or changes in districts. Obviously, they're trying to tilt it in one way or other. They're trying to create a bias. And if that's what we want inside of our representation, that one party or the other should be able to create a bias, then cheer this. Cheer and think this is a great idea. Do I think the Democrats should necessarily run away and prevent a quorum? No. I just think the functional process that we're doing this under is absolutely stupid. And both parties do it. Texas, I went and looked, had a history of people running away and preventing quorums since the late 1800s. So it's not like this is new. This is something Texas does somewhat regularly.
This is a new strategy.
Yeah.
Like I said, if Republicans could figure out a way to do this to the Democrats here in the state legislature, I'd love it. I'd cheer them on. Do I find it childish? 100%. You ran away. You're hiding in another state. To the victors goes the spoils in politics. But at the same time, do you find little ways to try to stop those in power and throw wrenches into the agenda and delay things? 100%. It's the way the game's played. So I'd like to see Republicans in Colorado try to figure out how to do this. Now, Gavin Newsom, Bill, he said he's ready to fight fire with fire. State Republican lawmakers try to enact redistricting in Texas, opposing the move through promising to pursue similar measures if needed. So Gavin Newsom saying, all right, Texas, you're going to gerrymander your state? Well, then we'll just respond by gerrymandering our state. What do you think of Gavin Newsom's response, Bill?
I think it's stupid. In part because it's in California, not Texas. I mean, it reminds me of, and I hate to do this, and this is, again, bad analogy morning, I guess. That's what we're going to do on a Tuesday. It reminds me of the 90s and early 2000s when it's like, wait, a whole bunch of people got together and they blew up 2 buildings in New York City. Let's go attack a country that wasn't involved in that process. That's what I see. I see the same logic of the idea of Newsom. Well, you're doing it in your state. We're going to do this in our state. So what? It doesn't matter. They should be pointing out the stupidness of gerrymandering. They should be pointing out the idea that this is not about getting representation for the voter. This is about only getting representation for my voters. That everybody else from the other party get bent. I firmly believe that of both parties, that if they could pass a law preventing the other party from voting or getting their votes to count half as much, they would.
Yep.
So why let them draw the boundaries in the districts? It's stupid. We expect something else to happen other than these wildly gerrymandered districts. And again, the people that are doing it are doing it in order to do what? Preserve their jobs. That's the issue. Here's what I would do, okay? If I was going to do the whole idea of gerrymandering, etc., what I would say is, okay, if you want to go ahead and you approve a gerrymander, everybody that votes, every person in the legislature, after you redraw the boundaries, none of y'all can run the next time. Entirely new legislature. There's no incumbency. You can't run. Not you get to turn around and try to run for your seat. You don't get to run. I would prevent you from running again. Yeah, that's big. Yeah, but I'm going to prevent you from drawing these boundaries to make sure that your seat stays safe so you can stay employed. That's the motivation behind this. I'm taking that motivation away, and I'm taking inspiration from what happened in Oregon in the late 2000s, I think it's 2018, 2019, when a bunch of Republicans ran away from the state because they were unhappy with what the Democrat-controlled legislature was doing inside of Oregon. The Oregon Supreme Court came back and said, Republicans, the fact that you ran away, you can't run next time. I would encourage, rather than this stupid thing about going out and arresting him, that's dumb, because Abbott doesn't have the ability to arrest these lawmakers in other states for this.
State.
Doesn't have any ability to do that. But you can prevent them from running again. That's what you do. But I would take that a step further. If you go through and you go through a process of redistricting, yes, but then all of you are out. Fresh blood next time around. Not a single incumbent. I don't care if you're in power or out of power. Not a single one of you can run. Let's wash it clean.
One idea that I would absolutely support if you're going to put some pretty serious restrictions on lawmakers is you don't get a salary if you can't balance the budget.
I'm in favor of that, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, would love to hear from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Colorado has set up this independent commission. It's not determined by the legislature. It's determined by a 12-member independent congressional redistricting commission. It's made up of 4 members from each of the 2 largest parties, plus 4 unaffiliated members. Do you support it? Any map requires the approval out of 8 of the 12 members, including at least 2 unaffiliated commissioners. Now, remember, I think these commissioners are appointed. So maybe they're elected. I'd have to look that up. But our listeners can help me with that. But do you like the idea of commissioners drawing these maps and then voting upon them? Other ones oftentimes come from legislatures. Judges sometimes determine what these congressional maps are going to look like. What's the best way to do this? And when you look at Colorado, do you go, it's working? Sure, we're not a 50-50 state, but we're a 50-50 state when it comes to congressional representation. Right? Jared Polis wins by nearly 20 points, and Democrats don't have dominance when it comes to members of Congress? Isn't politics about democracy? Isn't it about to the victor goes the spoil, and you get to determine the laws and the appointments and the people, because that best reflects the will of the people in the state? But in Colorado's case, you have 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats elected to Congress. Is that fair to Democrats? Do you even care? If Republicans got into power, and Republicans should have total control, and you'd like to see that, how about the Democrats fleeing the state? And if Republicans here in Colorado could flee to try to stop maybe Second Amendment restrictions from being passed, would you support them doing it? I sure would. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. And maybe, Bill, you just love the idea of being able to arrest one of your political opponents.
That's probably part of it. They want that. They want that visual. Regardless of the fact they can't do it, they want that visual.
Right. Well, let's talk, my friends, about the Black Eyed Pea of Colorado. Locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle. Absolutely love this restaurant. In fact, my whole family does. It's one of those rare restaurants where all 3 generations find something they really, really love. My parents, my wife and I, the kids. Everybody loves this restaurant. 8 locations. There's sure to be one near you. It's Colorado Cookout and Barbecue Time at the Black Eyed Pea. Their August menu is featuring backyard combos, the St. Louis Rib Combo, or the Barbecue 2 Meats Combo. They have barbecue pulled pork, barbecue chicken breast, and barbecue smoked sausage. So good. Maybe you're hankering for a sandwich. Try the grilled barbecue Polish sausage topped with grilled onions, or you can do the tender, slow-cooked barbecue pulled pork sandwich topped with cold slaw. Both are served on a toasted brioche bun. They also do catering, dinner parties, rehearsal dinners, and wedding receptions, or company events. Make it a success with Black Eyed Pea Catering. And, of course, Black Eyed Pea gift cards are always great for your special someone, birthday favors, or holiday presents, or just to say thank you to somebody. They have you covered. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will, too. Support local, keep it in Colorado, and visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Texas Democrats have fled the state. Have the Texas Republicans finally figured out a way to get Democrats to leave? But they have now issued arrest warrants telling them to come back. What do you think about all this? Do you agree with the Texas Democrats? Is this a noble cause? Gerrymandering worth fleeing the state, worth being imprisoned? And Bill, my mind goes to, what would I be willing to be imprisoned for in order to stand up? Gerrymandering, not so much. Yeah, those things kind of come and go. But if me fleeing the state as a Republican, like if I was a House Republican or Senate Republican, and I could flee the state of Colorado, and it would stop a vote to say, stop abortion, and the killing of 70 children a day, which is what happens in the state of Colorado, taxpayer funded, by the way. Absolutely, I would. In this case, I think the Democrats are being over-dramatic, especially as they flee to states that are heavily gerrymandered. I mean, Illinois is no equal representation state with independent commissions. That's a state that's heavily gerrymandered. So it seems like a little bit of hypocrisy here. Bill, is it right for the Republicans of Texas to seek arrest warrants for Democrats? Your thoughts, sir?
That's dumb. The idea of arrest warrants, one, because how are you going to affect them? You can't necessarily chase them. And for what? For not showing up to work? Seriously? That's basically it. That's their arrest warrant. And again, I think the Democrats are doing is stupid.
They're interfering, Bill. They're interfering with the process of government. They've stalled out government.
Have you paid attention to Congress? That's kind of what they do. I mean, that if I would, I mean, again,
filibuster.
Nationally and locally, I don't think that the functionality of Congress, either on a state or national level, is to get stuff done. That's not what they're necessarily focused on. So the idea that this is preventing them from doing it, but what I hear is from the Texas Democrats, I don't want to get out of work. My job too hard. I don't want to get out of work. That's your job. Go. I understand you're not in power. I understand you don't like this. There are a lot of Colorado Republicans that have spent time recently in our legislature that weren't happy with the bills that were being floated, with the votes that were being taken. They didn't run away. They showed up every day. I mean, we had small groups.
But you know what they did to try to stall? They would go down and give floor speeches, long-winded floor speeches in order to try to run out the clock. Do you remember the legal battle, the lawsuits that took place over the reading of bills?
Yeah.
Because constitutionally you're required to read the bill. But what Democrats would do is force-feed it into a robot that would then read it at like 8x.
Yeah.
And this thing would speed along super, super quickly. And then Republicans going, no, you have to read it in a way that's understandable. It was all about running out the clock. Is this just part and parcel with how politics is done in America, probably elsewhere as well? When you're in the minority, you just throw wrenches the best you possibly can to stop the majority.
Yeah, I understand the idea of throwing wrenches in there, but I don't think not showing up to work should be one of them. And only because you were voted into office. You were voted and said, I want to go do this thing. Running away and going to another state, regardless of political party, is saying, I don't want to go to work. You're being a spoiled little brat. And I agree that Democrats feel like this is being forced down their throat. Yeah, 2021, they passed a new map. Now, Republicans in Texas believe they have another advantage, so they're going to redraw the maps yet again. It is stupid. I think it's absolutely moronic to let the party in charge draw up the rules. We don't let last year's Super Bowl champion in the NFL draw up the new rules for the season. That doesn't happen. So you wouldn't do this in normally any other circumstance, except for this one. And then we're surprised when things go south and we don't get equal representation and things are gerrymandered and bent to a place in which these districts look ridiculous just so that someone can keep a job. Yeah, absolutely
Have you
stupid.
seen, by the way, the Denver congressional district that follows I-70, and then up to Pena Boulevard, goes around
it's
and
stupid.
covers the
I mean, the one that gets me is go to
the airport.
Wisconsin. Wisconsin's districts are ridiculous. They are
they're
just
some of the worst.
And that's part of it is because they're drawn in a certain way in order to keep people's jobs. No. That's why I firmly believe that if you get to redraw the districts and you do it, you don't get to run again. You are prevented from running for your seat again because that takes away the motivation of protecting your butt. If you don't have this job, then you're not going to be able to. And also, it prevents some of the motivation of keeping myself and my party in power, et cetera, because you're not there. So I would take away some of that motivation. I just think it's stupid that they're redrawing the gerrymandering in the districts. What I would tell the Democrats to do is to lean into this. I think in Texas, and we talked about this a little off the air, I think the Texas Republicans are making some assumptions on demographics that might not hold true. The problem is the Democrats don't know how to message to what I believe are persuadable voters in these districts. From what I'm seeing, the districts in Texas, they're drawing them with more Hispanic and Latino representation. And I think I'd be counseling my Republican friends in Texas. I think you're making a demographic mistake there because there's this assumption that has been made that because Donald Trump got a large segment of the Hispanic population to vote for him, that now they're going to vote for a Republican just because. I disagree, especially when we're rolling into the midterms. We know that in the midterms, historically, regardless of who's in power, Democrat or Republican, that the party in power that holds the White House normally loses seats. That's just what happens. It happened to every single president, save a few. There are very few examples where that doesn't happen. So I think Texas is looking at the idea of trying to shore up and not lose as many seats. But I think they're embracing some demographics that may not return to vote for you a second time. You may be making a mistake assuming that because these people voted for you once, they're going to vote for you again, especially when there's a lot of revolt that happens during that midterm so close after that election. If we were talking about this 4 or 5 years in the future, that may be a different game because then we can see voting patterns and behavior. I'm cautioning Texas Republicans to assume voting behavior based on what I see as a single election and data point. They may be making an assumption that doesn't hold up.
Lots of good text messages on this one. Breadman, I'm going to take yours to another level. Send ICE or bounty hunters after the Democrats. Brother, this could be the best episode, the best season of Dog the Bounty Hunter ever. If you're running around states trying to round up Democrat lawmakers. It reminds me of when, oh gosh, what was his name? John Edwards was caught in the stairwell of a hotel by media, and the dude's running around trying to hide from the media when he was visiting his mistress and the child he had born with her.
Tell you what, I'll do this.
My mind, watching these House Democrats and Senate Democrats from Texas run around in different states and try to avoid Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Here's what you do.
Brilliant.
Do the
bounty television.
Do the bounty hunters and have them chase them down. However, we need to make a wager that for every day, based on the number of Democrats that are still free, Democrats get to alter some of the lines in the gerrymandering. So you've got to put something here. So the Democrats have to be motivated. There has to be a reason for them to keep running. So as long as you give them something to achieve, again, if we're going to make this reality TV, we've got to have something to win on both sides. So by arresting them, then you can get the Texas Republicans can get what they want and push through the bills and push through the gerrymandering districts that they want. However, if the Democrats, and maybe it's just based on a Democrat or maybe it's a number of Democrats, but we can talk about what that would be, they get to change some of the boundaries. Then maybe it's one a day. For every day they are able to avoid Dog the Bounty Hunter, they get to change. Yeah, exactly. Now you've got some motivation on both sides. You know, as long as we're going to do this on TV, let's make this interesting for all of us.
It's like Dancing with the Stars. All right, 5556, Jeff and Bill, they're civil arresting warrants, not criminal. Bill, do you know the difference between a civil arrest warrant and a criminal arrest warrant?
No, the thing was, the department for me is the arrest warrant because I'm not certain under a civil charge you can be charged per se, but the arrest process of fingerprinting and mugshotting, that's a criminal procedure. So like when Mike Lindell was served a civil lawsuit from Eric Coomer and Dominion, the police didn't show up, the police didn't put him in handcuffs, and the police didn't mugshot him. So a little different that way. So and again, I'm not certain on those, but we need someone like a George Brockler to tell me exactly what the difference is there. But then I don't think they can go out and they can't arrest them because if it is statewide, why would a civil arrest warrant necessarily in Texas hold true in another state? There could be a warrant out for the arrest, but then you'd have to worry about the cooperation and some other stuff. So I don't know. I'm not sure about that one.
Well, ChatGPT says civil arrests are typically for failure to comply with a court order or judgment, and the purpose is to compel compliance, not necessarily punish the individual with incarceration.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily the same because we know that, not friend of the show, Joel Altman, did face some of those type of challenges when he decided to not pay fines from the court and not show up or actually leave a deposition when he walked out. So he was fined, and I think his final price tag was somewhere around $90,000 is what he's on the hook for now, $90K for doing that. So that'd be the issue.
Up there at that level
Yeah,
now?
that was, I think I saw the court case end.
Is that still going?
No, it ended, I think about a week or 2 weeks ago, and he was assessed $90,000 in fines and levies based on his behavior and lack of proof. In that one. There's some other stuff there, but not for the air.
2983 texting in what Jeff is describing as the plot of a dystopian action thriller, Running Man, starring Glenn Powell.
Yes, I can do that. I'm in for Running Man. That was a fun show. It was great. And who's the author of The Running Man?
Iggy Wonder. Oh, I don't know.
No, but who's the author? Yeah, because it's a famous author, but he wrote it under a pen name. And that's why it's significant. Yeah, the original author of The Running Man, it's based on a series of short stories by Richard Bachman. But Richard Bachman doesn't exist.
Huh.
Richard Bachman is Stephen King.
Oh, yeah, you told me you're a big fan of it.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole story there about why he did Richard Bachman, but Bachman originally penned it, but Bachman doesn't exist. Richard Bachman is Stephen King. It's a Stephen King story.
Jason in Denver, you remember when Virginia Governor Mark Sanford was in Argentina with his mistress, and his chief of staff told the media he was hiking the Appalachian Trail?
Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
Did he in jail for something, maybe?
I don't know. I didn't follow that yet.
Iggy's wondering if Texas could run a sting and entrap the Democrats and what that would be. Your mind could just run with that. Over the commercial break, think about that. How could you entrap the Democrats to bring them back to Texas? All right, we'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Wake up, Denver. There's no better place to start your morning than IHOP, where the pancakes are fluffy, the coffee is hot, and the smiles are endless. Wednesday, August 27th, join Jeff and Bill as they broadcast their show live from IHOP at 1595 South Colorado Boulevard in Denver. You're officially invited to be part of the excitement. Come grab your favorite breakfast and watch the Jeff and Bill Show in action from 6 to 10 a.m. Don't forget to try the special Jeff and Bill breakfast, pancakes, any style eggs, and crispy bacon, all for just $7.10. It's a deal as good as their hot takes. All they need is you. Bring your appetite, bring your friends, and kick off your day with great food and great conversation. See you Wednesday, August 27th at IHOP.
to stop gerrymandering from taking place. Are they right? Is this a righteous cause? Or are they just disruptive? Come on, Democrats. You face the electoral consequences. You at least got to show up and go to work. Let's go to the phone lines. Marcus Aurora. Good morning, Marcus. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Yeah. Good morning, guys. Hey, I always say this. I wish somewhat Democrats from Denver would do that, but I guess that ain't going to happen.
No, they just take trips to, like, Ireland, remember? And then Mike Johnson went to the NFL draft, and then he went to, they take vacations on taxpayer dimes.
I know it, but I always say this, downtown cities, I've always noticed they're always Democrat. Either you're rich or you're homeless. And those are their voters. And like us, you want to take your kids downtown Denver. You can't take them to the Boone Public Library, the Art Museum, the History Museum.
Oh, Marcus, your phone is like breaking up on us. It's like skipping here.
Yeah, Marcus, we're getting
try again.
Some technical
it's got like we're missing like every third word.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll get you back next time. Give us a call. Maybe we can take you at the top of the hour. Yeah, join the conversation. Would love to hear from you. Do you consider this something worth fighting for? The gerrymandering of Texas. This is unfair. And if it is, have you ever made the same critique about Illinois, for instance? There's plenty of gerrymandering happening there. Californian Governor Gavin Newsom threatening to gerrymander California in an effort to respond back to Texas. Is this a classic Cold War detente? Well, you're going to gerrymander, we'll just gerrymander right back in order to secure seats for Democrats in California. And does Colorado have it right? They have this independent commission that determines our congressional maps, and in doing so, makes it balance out. But is that fair to Democrats in Colorado that seem to dominate statewide elections, but then have to share congressional representation with Republicans? It's 4-4. It's an interesting debate that will continue, especially in the next hour. Along with, we'll be joined by Ian Escalante. Great post in the article in the Denver Post about the challenges that gun shop owners are now facing as a result of all of these restrictions coming on the Second Amendment. And this is stuff we talked about. We knew this was coming. We talked about it multiple times in the year. In fact, Bill and I hosted a gun shop owner who was closing down and moving to Wyoming in order to run his gun shop, or Idaho, one of those other states, but not Colorado. Is this a direction you want to see Colorado go? Fewer and fewer gun shops. Is that thing, in your mind, is that going to make Colorado safer? I don't think so. In fact, I think it's going to make Colorado less safe, because the only people that are going to go through the process that the Democrats have laid out and jump through all these hoops to purchase a gun are law-abiding citizens. And I've often said there are three different groups when it comes to gun ownership. The government, they own lots of guns. Criminals, and law-abiding citizens. At this point, everything the Democrats have done has been geared towards affecting law-abiding citizens. You're still going to continue to have criminals and the government that has guns. Is that a safer Colorado? We're going to talk with Ian Escalante next. Feel free to give us a call. We'd love to hear from you as well. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.